It is decision day for the Supreme Court as the justices head into the final weeks of the term, and we're still waiting to hear opinions on some of the most consequential cases on their docket. But the justices did hand down a ruling siding with a man who argued it's not a crime for marijuana users to have guns. Let's get to CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford. Jan, good to see you again today. So can you walk us through this decision and what it ultimately means for gun owners?
Sure. It involved a Texas man named Ali Hamani, and the government prosecuted him for owning a gun. He had a gun in his home because he admitted that he smoked marijuana a few times a week. The government said that that violated a federal gun control law that prohibits people who, basically use controlled substances, unlawful users of controlled substances, from owning a gun. And he was looking at 15 years in prison for this. So in the ruling today, which was unanimous, or at least the justices all agreed on the outcome, the justices said the government just went too far, that just because someone smokes marijuana a few times a week doesn't make them any kind of habitual user, kind of some of the historical terms that they say they had to really be grounded in to be prosecuted for. This wasn't a case where he was an addict, where he was dangerous to himself or others. We've been convicted of a felony, that he just admitted using marijuana like a lot of people do now in this country, and that was not enough to strip him of his Second Amendment rights. The court emphasized it was a narrow decision. It wasn't kind of talking about all those other things like addicts and convicted felons, but this was a big win for Mr. Hamani, and the government's broad interpretation of this federal law really could have gone a lot further. Like the court said, it could cover people, a husband who just wants to use one Ambien, that would be considered an unlawful use of a controlled substance, or a college student who wants to take maybe one Adderall of their roommate when they're trying to study for a test. That again would be a violation of this controlled substance law that the government said should mean they couldn't own a gun, didn't have Second Amendment rights. And the court said, no, that is just too broad of an interpretation. And they obviously, big win for Mr. Hamani. And generally, I think that the Second Amendment right to own a gun, unless you're doing something really bad or dangerous.
And Jan, we ask you this every Thursday, but for those who don't remember and, for those who still have more questions, we know there are several huge cases that have not been decided on just yet. Can you take us through them? Yes,
but first of all, Mugo, I have to tell you the big breaking news. The breaking news is we're going to get opinions next Tuesday.
Not Thursday. So next Tuesday, not Thursday.
Okay. Well, probably Thursday too, because the court is really entering kind of the backstretch of or is it the home stretch? Anyway, the final part, final push of its term. And so they've got, like you said, all these major decisions that are still hanging out there, and those take longer because they're very controversial, and the justices don't necessarily agree on the outcome. There's a lot of division. They see things differently. They may have different reasons for reaching an outcome, and so they're going to be the big blockbusters where we're going to see quite a lot of division and quite a lot of writing. And yes, we know which the big ones still kind of hanging out there, which ones those are. Number one, birthright citizenship. Can the president redefine what it means to be a citizen in this country? That's just one of a number of cases that touch on presidential power and President Trump's efforts to kind of push the envelope. Like, can he fire a member of the Federal Reserve Board? Obviously, that one has pretty big implications for the independence of federal agencies. Then you've got other gun cases. You've got election law cases. You've got a big case involving whether or not states can ban transgender athletes from participating in girls' sports. So it's going to be a busy week and a half ahead. They like to finish up by the end of June. They don't always. In 2024, they went to July 1. I think that could be possible this year because we have 16, 17 cases remaining, depending on how you count them. And of those, a dozen are pretty significant. So it's going to be, get some rest this weekend. It's going to be a pretty busy week and a half ahead.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to it. And Jan, you get some rest as well because we'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much.